bit of Alfred North Whitehead's book here that I've been waving around, The Function of Reason. It's a really short book, clearly written about the sort of fundamental categories of philosophy. And a lot of what I've already been saying is drawn from this book. So here's what a few paragraphs of what Whitehead has to say. I now state the thesis that the explanation of this active attack on the environment is a threefold urge. 1. To live. 2. To live well. 3. To live better. In fact, the art of life is first to be alive, secondly, to be alive in a satisfactory way, and thirdly, to acquire an increase in satisfaction. It is at this point of our argument that we have to recur to the function of reason, namely, the promotion of the art of life. The primary function of reason is the direction of the attack on the environment. This conclusion amounts to the thesis that reason is a factor in experience which directs and criticizes the urge towards the attainment of an end realized in imagination but not in fact. And an end realized in imagination but not in fact. The attainment of such an end. From the point of view of prevalent physiological doctrine, this thesis is a complete heresy. To the older discussions mentioned earlier, faith and reason, reason and authority, and so on, I should have added one other, physiology and final causation, or teleology. When we have added that item, we have placed the discussion of reason in its modern setting. In fact, we have now before us the two contrasted ways of considering reason. We can think of it as one among the operations involved in the existence of an animal body, and we can think of it in the abstraction from any particular animal operations. In this latter mode of consideration in abstraction, reason is the operation of theoretical realization. In theoretical realization, the universe, or at least factors in the universe, are understood in their character of exemplifying a theoretical system. Reason realizes the possibility of some complex form of definiteness, and concurrently understands the world as, in one of its factors, exemplifying that form of definiteness. The older controversies have mainly to do with this latter mode of considering reason. For them, reason is the godlike faculty which surveys, judges, and understands. In the newer controversy, reason is one of the items of operation implicated in the welter of the process. It is obvious that the 2 points of view must be brought together if the theoretical reason is to be satisfied as to its own status, but much confusion is occasioned by inconsistently wavering between the two standpoints without any coordination of them. There is reason asserting itself as above the world, and there is reason as one of many factors within the world. The Greeks have bequeathed to us two figures whose real or mythical lives conform to these two notions, Plato and Ulysses or Odysseus. The one shares reason with the gods, the other shares it with the foxes. So that's just a few paragraphs of Whitehead's function of reason here. And I think he's pointing out these two possibilities for reason. Practical reason, which is a perspective on reality from the inside out, from the I to the world, and theoretical reason, as opposed to practical, which is the perspective of nature and the I as a mere epiphenomenal product of nature, like the whistle on a train. So I think when Nick talks about suffering, he wants us each to take the perspective, the theoretical perspective, the God's eye view on our own, cranially contained, hallucinatory feelings of pain and pleasure and so on. He wants us to look at that from outside, and he wants us to see it from a universal perspective that isn't trying to particularize itself into an individual ego that is responsible for all of its thoughts and behaviors, of free will or something like that. So Nick wants us to ignore the practical side, the practical form of reason, that which would approach the world from the inside out, in favor of this outside-in understanding of our situation. And I would say that both of these poles are important. Understanding what's going on from the outside in, from nature and its apparent mechanisms, and the way that they function as the reason for our own existence, and the shape and function of our brain, but reason also as the necessary conditions for the existence of any of this organism, or these machines, or any of the life that exists on this planet. So there's a kind of cosmic reason, just as there is a reason internal to the idiosyncrasies of human society and culture, kind of political reason that the legal fictions that we impose upon one another, the obligations and contracts and debts that we owe to one another. Money is a strange thing from when you start to think of it from a philosophical perspective, isn't it? Thinking a lot about money, perhaps, is another way of becoming a paper brain person. You can't eat money, of course. One of the problems. So before I send you away to try to sort out exactly what the strange nonsense I was trying to convey to you in this video was, I'm going to draw a picture. If you recall earlier, I said that philosophy is the disciplined activation of imagination. And if we just look at the word imagination here on the page, we're going to dissect it. Consider this an organism, right? The word itself is a cell or a spell formed from the letters or the organelles, the molecules, the elemental letters. So if we dissect this organism, then we get, I, ma, and then this genation component. So there's three components to this imagination, right? And the Greek word ein Bildungskraft would translate literally as force of imagination. So this is a force, right? Kind of a force field, actually, or an electromagnet, a looping process, infinite in itself, but also stretched through finite space and time. So let's dissect the organism, right? The I is the thing that Nick doesn't want to exist. the ma is, well, that's matter. That's the only thing that Nick believes can exist. And then this genation part, this is, I think, something I'm going to have to point out that this is really leading to the idea of generation, right? So genation is the sort of underlying genetic source of the I and matter, and of that the polar opposition of these, of that forms this circuit here between what we call me, I, myself, the perceiver, and it, the perceived, the stuff, and the space out there. And I think this analysis of the organism, or the word imagination, I think shows us how, the I is a kind of virtual thing. It doesn't exist in the way that matter does out there. But I hope you could see some of that, what I was drawing there. But so Nick's not wrong. The I doesn't really exist as a thing that's like pushing neurons or trying, setting off neural firings in the brain or anything strange like that. But it is dynamically related to the brain as, not separate from, but part and parcel of what the brain process and the brain functioning is doing. But we have to see the brain from the perspective of imagination. We need to look at this organically and not just start from what the components are after we've dissected the organism. We can't start with just merely matter or just simply the I. We have to see the I and feel matter as part of, a single battery, positive and negative pole of this genetic sequence of evolution that we humans and everything else on this planet are participating in. This grand evolutionary project that started with photons and neutrinos and became suns and galaxies and whirling planets with life and now civilization. I mean, it's a battery, right? It's charging itself up. The I, me, and the thing, the it, the other, we're together in this imaginary adventure through the course of cosmic time. That, I think, is the function of reason, or at least that's what I think philosophy is. So this is probably a poorly organized video, but it's not worse than Nick's was, so I don't feel that bad responding with it.